Our story begins with a man named Hutch Mansell. On the surface, he looks like an ordinary family man. He lives with his wife, Becca, and their two children. Hutch works a modest job at his father-in-law Eddie's company, barely making enough to support his family. His marriage isn't in the best shape either, and the constant financial pressure only makes things worse. One night, everything changes when two armed burglars break into Hutch's house. He manages to catch them in the act, but for some reason he lets them take the cash instead of fighting back. Just then, Hutch's son Blake rushes in and attacks one of the intruders. Hutch quickly stops him and tells him to let them go. Before leaving, one of the burglars punches Blake hard in the face, leaving Hutch furious. But by then, the thieves have already escaped. After that night, everyone starts looking at Hutch differently. People think he's a coward because he willingly let the burglars walk away. Even Becca and Blake lose faith in him, believing he failed to protect his own family. The incident spreads through the neighborhood and even reaches his workplace, where people begin making fun of him. Hutch's brother-in-law, Charlie, isn't happy about any of this. Thinking Hutch needs to stand up for himself, he gives him a gun so he can protect his family if something like this ever happens again. Not long after, Hutch meets Eddie to discuss buying his company, but Eddie isn't impressed with Hutch's offer. Around the same time, Hutch has a radio conversation with his half-brother, Harry, and finally reveals why he let the burglars escape. Hutch had realized almost immediately that the two thieves were actually a husband and wife who were desperate for money. He could tell they weren't hardened criminals, they were simply trying to survive. Instead of making the situation worse, he chose to let them leave with a small amount of cash. Later that evening, Hutch visits his father, David, who lives in a nursing home. When he returns home, he watches his family through the window for a moment, feeling completely disconnected from them. Even after walking inside, no one pays much attention to him because they're still upset. Then, his young daughter, Sammy, tells him that her cat bracelet is missing. Hutch suddenly realizes the burglars may have taken it too. Determined to get it back, he visits his father again, borrows a gun, and begins tracking the thieves. He remembers a distinctive tattoo on one burglar's hand, so he visits tattoo artists across the city, hoping someone will recognize it. Eventually, Hutch finds the couple's address. He confronts them and demands his daughter's bracelet back. But just as things are about to escalate, he hears a baby crying inside the house. He quickly realizes their child is seriously ill, and the robbery was likely an act of desperation to pay for medical treatment. Seeing their situation, Hutch feels guilty. Without causing any trouble, he quietly leaves. On his way home, Hutch boards a bus. A group of drunk troublemakers soon gets on and starts harassing the passengers for no reason. Hutch has been holding back his anger for far too long, and this time he decides not to stay silent. He steps in and takes on the entire group in a brutal fight. When Hutch finally makes it home, Becca sees the injuries he suffered. As she treats his wounds, the distance between them begins to fade, and for the first time in a while, their relationship starts improving. Meanwhile, we're introduced to Yulian Kuznetsov, a powerful crime boss celebrating at a nightclub. His job is to safeguard other criminals' money, keeping it hidden from law enforcement. Recently, however, some members of the underworld have started questioning whether he's still capable of protecting their fortunes. The moment Yulian hears about their doubts, he makes a terrifying example out of a stranger in the club, proving to everyone that crossing him comes with deadly consequences. Not long afterward, Yulian receives shocking news. His younger brother Teddy has been beaten so badly that he's now in a coma. The man responsible is none other than Hutch. Teddy was one of the men involved in the bus fight, and Hutch had completely overwhelmed him. Furious, Yulian and his men rush to the hospital and question Teddy's friends about the attacker. During the investigation, one of them hands Yulian Hutch's business card, which had been taken during the fight. The next morning, while Hutch is having breakfast with his family, Harry calls with an urgent warning. He tells Hutch that the man he fought wasn't just anyone. He was the brother of a dangerous mafia boss. Harry advises Hutch to meet a man known as the Barber, someone who knows everything about Yulian and can explain exactly how dangerous he really is. When Hutch finally meets the Barber, he learns just how powerful and ruthless Yulian is. Even after hearing everything, Hutch doesn't regret what he did. At the same time, Yulian orders one of his associates to use Hutch's business card to track him down, and when the truth finally comes out, everyone is stunned. Hutch isn't an ordinary family man at all. He's a retired professional assassin. People believed that if there was someone who couldn't be taken down, Hutch was the man who could do it. Throughout his entire career, he had never failed a single mission. Every target assigned to him met the same fate. Although Hutch had left that dark life behind years ago, underestimating him was the biggest mistake anyone could make. After learning about Hutch's past, the agent warned Yulian not to mess with him, but blinded by revenge, Yulian refused to listen. Instead, he ordered his trusted right-hand man, Pavel, to eliminate Hutch. Knowing trouble was coming, Hutch hid his family safely inside the basement. Soon, Yulian's men stormed the house, but they had no idea who they were dealing with. Hutch fought back with incredible skill, taking down the attackers one after another. Just when it seemed like he had won, Pavel managed to sneak up behind him and knocked him unconscious with a powerful electric shock. A short short while later, Hutch regained consciousness. He broke free from his handcuffs and realized he was locked inside the trunk of a moving car. Thinking quickly, he grabbed a fire extinguisher and released its contents inside the vehicle, filling it with smoke. The driver lost control, and the car crashed. The accident proved fatal for Pavel and the men traveling with him. Hutch made his way back home and brought his family out of the basement. They were horrified by the destruction left behind. To keep them safe, Hutch moved them to a secure location and promised that everything would be taken care of. Afterward, he returned to the house and gathered all of his valuables, including several gold bars that he had kept hidden for years. Once everything important was out, he set the entire house on fire, destroying any evidence that could be used against him. Around the same time, another shocking truth came to light. Yulian hadn't only sent people after Hutch, he had also dispatched a team to kill Hutch's father, David. The attackers assumed David would be an easy target because of his age, but they couldn't have been more wrong. The elderly man effortlessly fought them off, proving he was far more dangerous than he looked. Later, Hutch took the gold bars and went to Eddie's company to finalize its purchase. Charlie, however, thought Hutch was mocking the family and confronted him. The situation escalated, but Hutch ended the fight almost instantly. Meanwhile, Yulian received the news that Pavel and his entire team had been wiped out. Furious, he ordered his remaining men to hunt Hutch down without delay. Hutch knew Yulian wouldn't stop, so he started preparing for the next move. He also knew exactly where Yulian kept his fortune. Without wasting any time, Hutch infiltrated the location, dealt with the security guards, and made his way inside. Then he set millions of dollars in cash on fire, reducing Yulian's criminal empire to ashes. As if that wasn't enough, Hutch walked straight into Yulian's nightclub and calmly sat across from him. Looking him directly in the eyes, Hutch warned that he was ready to destroy everything if Yulian kept coming after him and his family. Everyone else was ordered to leave so the two could talk alone. Hutch gave Yulian one final chance. He told him to stay away from his family, saying that continuing this fight would only end badly. To make his point, he showed Yulian the burned money and suggested he find another way to rebuild his life before quietly walking away. But deep down, Hutch already knew the truth. There was no way Yulian would ever forgive the man who had nearly killed his younger brother. The moment Hutch walked out of the nightclub, Yulian sent every man he had after him. Hutch made his way to his father-in-law's factory, knowing it would become the battlefield. Just as the attackers closed in, David and Harry arrived to back him up. What followed was an all-out fight. Using powerful weapons and the traps Hutch had already prepared, they started taking down Yulian's men one after another. It turns out David wasn't just an ordinary old man, he was a retired FBI agent, and Harry had a military background, making him just as dangerous. Together, the three of them fought through wave after wave of attackers until almost every one of Yulian's men had been defeated. Now only Yulian himself was left. In a desperate move, Yulian fired a shot that struck Harry in the shoulder. Seeing his brother injured, Hutch snapped. Without hesitation, he detonated an explosive, bringing Yulian's reign to a violent end. Sometime later, two investigators arrived at the factory to examine the scene. They couldn't believe what they were looking at. The number of bodies scattered across the building was unbelievable, and it was even harder to accept that one seemingly ordinary man had been responsible for it. Just then, both investigators received phone calls at the exact same moment. The expressions on their faces changed instantly. They looked at Hutch, exchanged a glance, and without asking another question, released him without filing any charges. Before Hutch left, one of them couldn't resist asking, "Who are you, really?" Hutch simply smiled and replied, "I'm nobody." Years earlier, Hutch had spent his life carrying out secret missions for his country, operating in complete anonymity. During one assignment, he made an unusual decision. He spared his target instead of killing him. A year later, Hutch saw that same man living peacefully with his family, happy and free. For the first time, Hutch realized he wanted a life like that for himself. So he walked away from his old job and chose to build a family instead. Not everyone above him approved of that decision, but Hutch never looked back. Later, while he and Becca were shopping for a new home, Hutch received an unexpected phone call. The message was simple: his country still needed him. And that's how he found himself crossing paths with the ruthless mafia boss, Yulian. Hutch never revealed the truth about his past to his family. All they knew was that he would do absolutely anything to keep them safe. Yulian, on the other hand, was willing to risk everything for his younger brother. In the end, both men fought for the people they cared about most, but only one of them walked away victorious, and that winner was Hutch.